What I will not do, okay, is to pay bandits, give them monthly allowance, or send food to them in the name of non-kinetic. It's nonsense. We are empowering bandits.
Is that what is government of Kaduna is paying?
It's not
bandits?
The government of Kaduna State. It's a national policy driven by the Office of National Security Advisor, and Kaduna is part of it. Many states are objecting to that, but that is the policy now. Kill the bandits. That's the new policy. My position has always been the only repentant bandit is a dead one. Let's kill them all. Let's wipe them. Let's bomb them until they are reduced to nothing. And then the 5% that still want to be rehabilitated can be rehabilitated. You do not negotiate from a position of weakness. You don't empower your enemy. You don't give him money to go and buy more sophisticated weapons. That's why the insecurity problem has not gone away and will not go away as long as this policy continues.
The recent argument between the National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribadu, and the former governor of Kaduna State, Governor Nasir El-Rufai, seemed to mask serious happenings in northern Nigeria that impact on the security challenges that we have. Though attention has been taken away from all other forms of security challenges and the issues emanating thereof from them, what we have appear to be more insidious, more serious than what the public is discussing. My name is Rimamnde Shawulu. This is The Other Side. I'm referring to the discussions that have been taking place between bandits or outlaws, kidnappers, terrorists, and some communities in the northwestern states of Nigeria. Most people, the discussion or armistice or peace talks between bandits and local authorities in those areas are what you could refer to as communities taking the law into their hands. Having waited so long for government that has not come, the various communities have been reaching out to bandits, agreeing on how they could live together with these bandits. The most disturbing thing was the recent one in which a local government chairman was also involved with the discussions. This has very serious implications for Nigeria and the fight against insurgency. Let's take a look at some of the discussions that have taken place. In Jibia and Katsina State, on February 28th this year, the Jibia People's Forum, community leaders and security agencies were present, had a ceasefire discussion with kidnappers. And from the headlines that were received, there were free movement of people, farmers had access to their lands, and some weapons were surrendered by the outlaws. Of course, what was the outcome? 10 of the abducted people were freed. 2 AK-47s were handed in shortly after the meeting. This was the community efforts, having waited for so long for government efforts to banish the terrorists, efforts which did not come to fruition. And then there is the case of Batsari in Katsina State also. Prior to February of this year, community leaders, in the presence of security agents, met with some of the terrorists, and the discussions was meant to ensure that the attack stopped, some captives were released, and farmers were guaranteed access to their farms, and community markets and hospitals were opened up for the bandits. Several months of relative calm ensued. And then there is a case of Safana, also in Katsina State. Between 11 and 12 of August, the local government chairman and traditional rulers met with some of the bandits, and the bandits listed 20 conditions. Of course, the discussions that ensued resulted in the bandits agreed to cease killing and kidnapping. Farmers also had access to their lands. Communities had access to their hospitals. Some schools were repaired and so forth. The accord was publicly announced. There were some follow-up incidents. And then the case of Katsina State too, Dan Musa, the local government chairman, was involved. Traditional rulers, army, police, DSS, civil defense, and several other people witnessed the discussion between these outlaws and communities. The outlaws again agreed to renounce violence. They released some of their captives and surrendered some arms. It was reported that between 16 to 17 hostages were released and several weapons were surrendered by 10 or 12 of the leaders of those bandits group. And then Still in Katsina, the case of Kurfi. On August 30th, the district head, local government chairman, met with the bandits in Wurma forest. The bandit leaders pledged to cease hostilities. They released captives, allow farmers to their lands, and the community leaders promised to support the rehabilitation of schools and hospitals and give fair treatment to detainees. And they identified leaders that were named at that included someone called Kachala Ruga. That was the 5th local government council in Katsina State that such a deal was agreed to. But it is not only in Katsina State that that is happening. We've also had the case of Anka in Zamfara State. In May this year, the district head, chief imams, civil representatives, and so forth met with bandits, and the communities agreed to pay 30 million naira down payment and to provide motorcycles, and these were later converted to cash, and withdraw vigilantes, and bandits agreed to release the people they had abducted to stop kidnapping our farmers access to their farms and their markets. Outcome of that was the release of 43 people who were abducted. 60 more were said to have been freed, and the market in the area which had been closed was reopened. Of course, there are reports that other communities are engaged in discussions with these bandits so that they will agree to pay levies, and the bandits will be allowed to move freely and nobody will disturb nobody, and there might be peace. So it is thought. In Kaduna State, the government published a DDRR peace meeting or model engagement with repentant bandits leaders that were afflicting the peoples of Chikun, Kajuru, Kagarko, Giwa, and Birningwari. It was framed as a state-led process and not as individual local government process. This, of course, naturally sparked a debate about payment to bandits. And in Birningwari, a civic group publicly denied paying bandits as a rebuttal to this story. In Sokoto State too, officials said in June that they will engage bandits who are willing to lay down their arms first. No specific local government signed any deal with any of the bandit leaders. All these things have serious implications for the country. And the question that will be asked is, the people living in these communities still have loyalty to the government? If the bandits, terrorists, or kidnappers, as we know them, that they have entered into this peace deal with, decide to go against the government and the entity called Nigeria, what would happen in those communities? It is unfortunate that we have arrived at this stage where communities are deciding to take their situation into their hands, to go and make peace with people who have been terrorizing them, people that government has been saying that they will protect. Because the first order of government, the first responsibility of government is the protection of the rights of people. Now, the issue for me are numerous, and they appear to be what should take the attention of the government. Because if you look at countries around the world where these types of agreements have been reached with local communities, the results have not always been good for the entities, the governments that are in charge of these territories. If you even take the case of Afghanistan, for instance, bandits or these outlaws started taking communities little by little, and these communities had to pledge loyalties to these groups by not attacking them, and these groups, of course, collected what you call royalties or collected protection money from these communities. The result of it was that they increased in their strength until they were able to take over the government. If you take the case of Syria, we also had the same situation. If you look at Africa, there's some of the conflicts that we've had in Africa, some of the ongoing conflicts, situations like the happenings in Congo have not ceased, they have continued. Because once you establish the pattern that communities can actually pay to another authority to protect them, you open the room for those entities to get strengthened and prepare to expand their territories until they either make the whole place ungovernable, or if they have the power, they now take over the whole government, the whole territory. And that is why this issue is a very serious matter that government needs to pay serious attention to. It has been my view, of course, that all those who have argued, and I think very wrongly, that you need to combine a new academic word for many people, and non-kinetic, that is force and discussion, or other methods or other than force with these bandits. I failed to understand that in almost all the places that non-kinetic processes have taken place, they have always been preceded by successful kinetic processes that degrade, that destroy, take out the leadership of the groups that are threatening the such countries. It is only after they've been degraded and destroyed, or like Buhari and his army commander said before, if they have been more than technically defeated, then you can go to do discussion. If you do discussions from the position of weakness, namely that you are unable to protect these communities, and so these communities are going to their traducers, the people who are fighting them, to receive some protection, it means that the loyalty of those communities will begin to be divided, and that is a major problem. As far as I'm concerned, the discussion between those communities and the bandits or kidnappers or terrorists is a sign of weakness. It demonstrates government's weakness and failure of government's efforts for the last 10, 15 years in tackling terrorism and issues related to it. Now, like I said, when communities on their own go to negotiate out of weakness, or some sections of government, either state that don't control the military, or the local government that don't control any form of security, go to discuss with those terrorists, you now psychologically empower the terrorists because you have made them to believe that they have succeeded in stopping government from reaching them. People all through history, people follow governments for two reasons, not just out of love. Loyalty can be produced by brute force or by love, and the loyalty of the people may shift to these outlaws out of brute force. That is a problem. The third point is that bandits and outlaws will not stop doing what they are doing. They will simply use the peace that they have with these communities now to arm themselves, to expand their territories. If they have made peace with the local authorities, what stops them from carrying their weapons in other even local government vehicles to other places that they want to operate? Nothing stops them from doing that. Nothing stops them from using the peace that they have to train themselves, to regroup and get more resources, which they will be getting on a regular basis from these communities. And even if today they have decided on small or paltry amount of money that members of these communities will pay, with time, they are likely going to increase the charges that they will be imposing on these communities to arm themselves, and probably to send money to some puppet masters who may be directing them from outside the shores of Nigeria. In addition, these communities may become staging areas from which attacks could be staged, could be brought on other communities that have not arrived, that have not reached these agreements with them. Of course, related to it is the fact that if, assuming they even succeed in having peace for 1 year, what stops other communities that have seen this peace for 1 year from also reaching agreement with these bandits, and so expanding their territory to the extent that they become very serious threats to the whole country or the whole state? Of course, like I said, they will use the expansion that they will engage in to increase their revenues, get more weapons, and come for some deadly attacks on other communities, or expand what they are doing from those states to other states. But the sorry thing about it is that in simple definition of logic, as also through history, what has simply happened is that those communities are now conquered territories of the bandits. If you even look at our recent history, you will notice that when some foreign powers come to conquer an area, what they simply do is that they charge tribute. Once you start paying tribute, it means that you have succumbed, you have succeeded. That means that officially those territories are now under the control of those outlaws. And the danger is the outlaws may come in because of the tribute that they are getting, have more money, be able to buy things that peaceful and peace-loving youths in those communities will not be able to buy. The result of it is that those communities or those young people in the communities may become easy targets for recruitment into the ranks of the bandits, the kidnappers, and the terrorists. They may even voluntarily decide to join, because if you join those people, you become part of the people or the groups that are enforcing laws in your communities. And the question you will ask is that, what now happens to the security outposts in those areas, the police, the civil defense, the Department of State Security, and the military who may be posted in that area? What do they do when they meet those bandits going about with arms, with the knowledge and support of community leaders? And finally, the very dangerous point about this is that it has been said somewhere that these terrorists, kidnappers, and bandits are not just ordinary criminals who are working just on their need for money and so forth. Even if that were the case, the fact of the matter is that because of their need for money, they will easily be assimilated into bigger groups, bigger terrorist groups operating outside Nigeria. They will seek, from whom they will seek to acquire weapons, acquire knowledge, acquire support to increase their strength, and therefore become not just local threats, but international threats. And come to think of it, there have been reports in some international security publications that the terrorists operating in northern Nigeria have links with the terrorists operating in other parts of the Sahel. And these terrorists have their eyes on coastal Nigeria, because coastal Nigeria will help them in their drugs businesses. So if anyone thinks that these terrorists will end in the northwest, I think that is a mistake. The fact that these terrorists have reached Kwara State and may be in Oyo State should tell us that government needs to wake up, that it is not just northern Nigeria that is at risk, but every part of Nigeria may be at risk. My name is Rimamnde Shawulu. This is The Other Side.